After Ferrari's F355 masterpiece being hailed as the best all-around supercar in the world, produced between 1994 and 1999, Ferrari had a tough act to follow. Ferrari's president, Luca Di Montezemolo, wanted to go further in his quest to build an exciting and tactile car to drive with astonishing performance. So in 1999, the Ferrari 360 Modena was introduced. However, now with this new V8 mid-rear engine Berlinetta, Ferrari also decided to produce a more practical day-to-day V8 Berlinetta with better interior size and ergonomics. The name chosen for this new entry-level Ferrari referred to the engine capacity of 3.6 liter or 219 cubic inch, while Modena is the major city located 11 miles or 18 km from Maranello, where the factory is located. It also is the name of the province including Maranello. The town of Modena was also dear to Enzo Ferrari's heart simply because he was born and initially created the Scuderia Ferrari in Modena. Unlike the F355, which was based on the 348, the 360 Modena was new from the ground up and used the all-new aluminium space frame chassis developed by the American aluminium company Alcoa, who made the first-generation Audi A8 chassis. This new process stiffened the 360's chassis by a staggering 40% over the F355. This solution was also adopted on the suspension components to reduce the unsprung weight. The adoption of aluminium helped to claim a weight saving of 176 pounds or 80 kilos. On the other hand, and as usual, the styling was given to Pininfarina. To break all the rules, Pininfarina's design was also a departure from the little dinos to the F355. For a start, the center grille was deleted and replaced by two side air intakes as seen on the McLaren F1 or Porsche's 996 turbos. But in the Ferrari's case, the front air intake looked odd due to a slightly raised bumper fitted for an easier city use. As in the 550 Maranello, the 360 ditched the pop-up headlights for a more aerodynamic, clear-covered solution. From the profile, two air intakes could be seen. The lower one, located in front of the bottom rear wheel arches, was fed by a recessed air channel starting from the door to the under-tray venturi to create downforce. The second air intake was a visual cue taken from the 1963 Ferrari 250 LM. The top intakes were located at the top of the rear fenders by the rear quarter window, which was also different than the previous models with its rounded corners. Sadly, the iconic rear flying buttresses introduced on the entry-level Ferrari production cars since the Little Dinos were changed to a more aerodynamic fastback design. But to everyone's delight, Ferrari used a rear glass window as a visual portal to a shamelessly exposed bidding V8. As far as the rear end, it was executed like on the 550 Maranello, with the rear lid forming a wavy pattern à la Marcos, with the third stoplight mounted directly on the raised center lid. A popular and pleasing option to see was the all-meshed rear black screen, also known as the Challenge Grille, which allowed the engine to cool faster, but it also cancelled the flat spot found on the standard and too lengthy color-coded rear panel. The quad exhaust pipes seemed a little lost and off-center from their scopes, which matched the front air intakes. Quickly though, your eyes were drawn to the center bumper where two massive rear venturis gave a total of 397 pounds or 180 kg of downforce at 180 miles per hour or 290 km per hour, thus about 4 times what the F355 was generating, thanks to a full flat undertray unlike the partial one found on the F355. The interior was more accessible due to raised seat. It also provided leg and headroom with its longer chassis. Also, it allowed the 360 to have enough space behind the seats to fit a golf bag or soft bag, making the 360 the most practical entry-level Ferrari ever produced. The instrument by Nicole also changed from the F355 with an aluminium background housing 5 gauges with a ref counter as the biggest dial right in the center dash. The fully adjustable in rake and reach 3-branch steering wheel with airbag was thinner and better finished than the bulky one found on the F355. Overall, you could see a vast improvement in build quality over the F355. 5-round air vents were placed on the dashboard and were a welcome update, much more modern than the older F355's rectangular units. Below the 3 air vents, on the center dash was the radio and AC heat control unit layout in a compact and clean manner. The plastic and tacky tunnel console, desperately trying to mimic an aluminum finish, housed the 6-speed manual gearbox and its exposed gate. This time, the transmission was longitudinally placed to make for a smoother shifting experience. Or you could opt for the new and improved 6-speed F1 electro-hydraulic shift sequential gearbox with paddle shifters right behind the steering wheel. Also, an electronic damping system could be set for sport or normal mode, while the traction control, ASR, could ultimately be turned off for an even sportier experience. The engine was the same dual-cam 5-valve per cylinder V8 at 90 degrees found on the F355, but it was now stroked to 3.6 liter or 219 cubic inch. He developed an extra 20 horsepower for a total of 400 PS at 8,500 RPM or 395 horsepower, thus 112 horsepower per liter. But more importantly, the torque went from 269 foot-pound at a very high 6,000 RPM to 275 foot-pound at a much lower 4,750 RPM. This gave the 360 a creamier and punchier acceleration, which was also helped by a more responsive drive-by-wire throttle system and a variable exhaust valve. The 0 to 62 mph time was of 4.5 seconds, while 4.2 seconds could be achieved with the F1 transmission with only 150 milliseconds needed to upshift. But this last 6-speed F1 transmission could still be jerky at times and wasn't as involved as the 6-speed manual transmission, but managed 3 seconds less at Fiorano, Ferrari's track, than the F355. In 2000, the Ferrari 360 Spider, no Modena nomenclature here, was introduced and finally replaced the F355 Spider. Unlike the F355, the 360 Spider had a completely automated electric soft top with rear buttresses that disappeared under a rear panel with flowing headrest and roll bar hoops. The engine lid was now flat but retained the glass engine cover to make your eyes water. The Ferrari 360 Modena also competed within its own class with the 360 Challenge series, and in 2003 a light street version of the 360 Racer was introduced with the Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale for street or 360 CS. A total of 242 pounds or 110 kilos were shed from the standard car, with the adoption of carbon fiber for the interior door panels, tunnel console and bucket seats, while the carpets were removed. On the outside, the carbon fiber craze continued with a front spoiler lip and more profiled side mirrors. In Europe, Perpex sliding side windows could also be ordered, but if you really wanted to be different, a hand-painted Italian flag-inspired body central stripe was also on the catalog's menu for around $5,000. Inside again, the diet treatment let you see the tubular welds done by a volunteer, and on the binnacle the ref counter background turned yellow, while a dead-on center marking on the steering wheel helped you focus on twisty and busy racetracks. Racing seats with harnesses were standard, but the only transmission available was the 6-speed F1 unit with a longer upshift paddle. The tunnel console was redesigned with a newly fitted start button, giving you a sense of being in a real racing car. Next to the start button, you could find an on-off traction control button, allowing you to play it safe or have full control at the track. Still on the tunnel console, a raise button firmed up the already low and stiffer suspension, increased the throttle response, and halved the 150 milliseconds shifting up time usually taken by the standard Modena F1 transmission. Once revving on the engine and at the helm of your 360 CS, a surprise awaiting you with the second exhaust stage valves giving you a new surge of power from 6,300 RPM all the way up to 8,500 RPM. This made it obvious that the 360 Challenge Stradale was in another league than the standard 360. Power was also on the rise, with 425 horsepower found at 8,500 RPM, thus 119 horsepower per liter, and to put this power to the ground, a new set of more attractive 19-inch BBS alloy wheels with carbon ceramic brakes replaced the already efficient cross-drill steel units. All this weight loss and improved performance meant that the Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale could sprint to 62 mph from a standstill in 4 seconds flat when using the launch control, LC mode, also found on the tunnel console. The last Ferrari 360 Modena left Maranello in 2005 and was another success for the Italian carmaker, this time in all areas of production, from the design to the interior quality and ergonomics. With this, you couldn't forget the technical tour de force that propelled and made the Ferrari 360 handle and respond so well, even if it was reportedly a little tail happy at the limits of adhesion.